Hello and welcome to episode 10 of Adult Music, the podcast with music for the mature mind.
It's our 10th episode.
It's number 10.
We made it. We didn't think we'd make it this far.
Now here we are.
Yeah. How about that?
Well, it's been an interesting week for music and other things.
It certainly has. I want to say something about this week. Last week, if you remember, on our episode 9, we talked about 2 Proust Salon recordings, and one of them was by Théotime Langlois de Svarta and with Tanguy de Villiencourt on the piano. And I thought it was okay. I thought the whole setup was really great. They were playing amazing instruments. It was an excellent program, but I felt like the execution of those works was leaving a little to be desired. Well, guess what? Gramophone's list of recordings of the month came out. They always pick 10 recordings. Gramophone is a British music magazine, and they picked that album, Théotime Langlois de Svarta and Tanguy de Villiencourt, as their album of the month.
Wow.
Now, I want to say something about this. First of all, I thought that the Stephen Eserlis disc was far better than this one, and it wasn't even on their list. And I want to say, the album was good. It was a good program. It was enjoyable. I just felt like it was a little, kind of didn't live up to expectations. But it wasn't recording of the month. Sorry, I'm not buying that. I don't know why they chose that. Anyway, I got that off my chest. There it is.
Maybe they thought de Swart is like a marketable face to millennials or something like that.
I think, like me, they freaked out about the fact that there was a Stradivarius and an Erard piano being played on that album, and they kind of said it fell over themselves, trying to recommend it. Yeah. But I don't know. I recommended the Eserlis and Caniche duo as the better performance.
It was
and I stand by that.
A more polished performance. I like the energy of those other guys. De Swart,
well, I like them in general, but I don't know. I just felt like they're generally both. I think both of them are generally more Baroque musicians, and I think on that one they kind of were a little, well, they studied this music in school too, but I just thought they were a little out of their comfort zone in that. It was okay. It was good. I think it could have used a little more. I don't want to get into it again. We listened to last week's episode. You'll know what I thought. Yeah. There you go.
Opinions are opinions. But this week we've got another load of interesting music to get through here. I think there's some real gems in this week. But before we get to that, just a few things I need to say. I want to remind our listeners that in the episode description, you'll find links to all the music we'll discuss tonight. Links to Spotify and Apple Music so you can stream and listen to everything we talk about. At the top of the list is a link to the full episode playlist, all the music in one place on Deezer, where you can also follow us at username Adult Music Podcast. And if you can't see that list on your app or wherever you're listening, please check out our podcast on our host, Podbeam. And if you enjoy the podcast, please follow or subscribe on whatever app or platform you listen to us on. And if you give us a ranking or write a review, it will help us get listed in the browsing category recommendations, which will help us grow our audience, and we'd really appreciate that. If you'd like to contact us directly with any comments or questions, our email address is adultmusicpodcast, all one word, @gmail.com. And finally, I'd like to give special thanks to Feedspot, who kindly listed us in their top 20 classical music podcast list and in their top 25 jazz podcast list. So the links to those lists are in the episode description notes at the top as well. So please check those out for more great music podcasts selected by Feedspot.
One more thank you, by the way. A listener wrote in and let us know. Now, this is way back. I don't remember which episode this was. We had reviewed a John Patitucci, Vinny Colaiuta, and Bill Cunliffe album, and we mentioned that it wasn't available on CD. And a listener wrote in and told us that it was, and told us how to get it. And I ordered it, and have it, and I'm very happy. So thank you, listener, for the information. We really appreciate it.
Wasn't it?
It was at Bandcamp. Yeah. Well, Bandcamp distributed. I don't know who the label was.
And the comment came through YouTube, so...
Yeah, so thank you very much for that. Please keep us informed if we, especially if we say something like that there's a CD not available when it is, because I definitely want it.
We're two guys who know a little bit about a lot of music, but there's a lot of people who know a lot more about lots of music than we do. So
well, there are some people who know a lot about a little music too, and
that's true,
we're kind of, we're just kind of wide ranging, I guess. Yeah. We're just fanatics. We're basically music junkies, what they used to say.
I guess so. It's a good time.
I don't know. Not a bad way
junkie.
To spend your life, though. I got to tell you, there are worse ways, certainly.
Yeah.
All right. It makes me happy every day.
Let's dig in. What do we have at the top of the list tonight?
Okay, so we're going for the. So we're going into the list. Oh, by the way, before we get into this, we've been obsessing about that Gershwin, Porgy and Bess recording for a long, long time. Did you finally get to hear this?
I did listen. I haven't listened to the whole thing. I've listened to part of it, and it's definitely okay.
Yeah, I thought okay too.
Okay.
Now the thing is, this is a great opera. First of all, it's got so many great tunes in it, and it's really just probably the best American opera ever. Okay. Anyway, it won the Grammy Award, and it was released by the Metropolitan Opera on their label, and we couldn't get it via streaming, so I just had to hear it, because a new recording of the opera they're kind of rare. Okay, and when I heard this, it was it was good. It was a more theatrical performance than a musical one. I thought they were going more for the theater. So some of the really great tunes were they were good, but it wasn't anything I'm going to be kind of thinking about all the time. I still prefer the Simon Rattle recording from about 20 years ago now. Boy, which was a very musical performance, probably the best on record. So look for that.
Yeah, I got the same feeling. I felt like I should be watching this rather than just listening to it. So
yeah, and the photos in the booklet just make it even more enticing.
Yeah.
Another thing I like about what I saw in the booklet was, the staging looks good. It looks like it takes place in its time period. One of the, what I feel is annoying things about modern opera is that, they'll take an opera like The Marriage of Figaro by Mozart, 18th century. So you expect men in frock coats and these ruffled shirts, and women in these dresses and stuff, but they'll set them in 20th century during a certain period, and it'll be like, hey, you see how this relates to that? And I'm like, no, I really don't. I really would prefer to see these operas in their original milieu. Okay, you can change the staging a bit, you can kind of make the costumes more interesting, but there's this whole kind of, I hope it's a fad for this sort of updating old operas. And I don't think they need updating. I really like seeing them in their period. All right, I don't know. Maybe it's the historian in me that kind of likes that. Okay, I'm off my soapbox now. Let's get to the music.
All right, get off that soapbox and get down into this music list we've got here.
Okay, so here's what we got. First, I wanted to. I got another doubleheader this week. Okay.
You did it again.
Yeah, I used to go to doubleheaders as a kid, and I feel like I want to bring them back musically anyway. Because if I can't bring them back in baseball, we used to go to Mets games.
Mets games, oh, okay.
Yeah, and it would be the banner day. It was a doubleheader, and they would always lose both games. It was really disappointing. You didn't get to see them lose once. You got to see them lose twice.
It wasn't Phil Rizzuto then.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, but we used to hear him on TV.
Yeah.
I remember the old Yankees with, Bobby Mercer. Remember him? He was like the first Yankee I remember from when I was a kid. That was in the early 1970s. Anyway, sorry, international audience, for bringing back these American memories.
New Yorkisms.
Yeah, New Yorkisms especially. Okay, so I chose something for the guitar heads out there. And the first of these two guitar albums is an album of music by Santiago de Murcia. Or maybe it'd be pronounced Murcia because he's Spanish, but I don't know what they would have said back in the day, and Entre dos Almas, it's called. And the guitarist is Stefano Maiorana on Baroque guitar. Released on the Arcana label, which specializes... They're part of a music group called Out There, and Out There runs the Alpha label and all these a few really fantastic labels like Alpha. And this is one of them, and they specialize in, they say Italian music, but they don't necessarily always do Italian music. This disc is Spanish music played by, I'm guessing, an Italian guitarist. Maiorana sounds like an Italian name to me. Okay, now, Santiago De Murcia, his music, there was an album 20 years ago or something by an ensemble, I think. I don't remember the name of it. I should really write these things down when I see them. But I was introduced to his music by this recording that came out maybe a good it must be 20 years ago, called Codex Number 4, and it was by Ensemble Kapsberger on the Naive label. It's still available as a download at least. I don't see that it's available as a CD anymore. It might be. Anyway, it featured Murcia's music. It was, Baroque Spanish music, and it has a lot of percussion on it, and it's just fantastic. I really loved this. And then there was more Murcia music on an album that both Russ and I heard called Concerto Zappico by Forma Antiqua. There were three brothers who played Baroque instruments, and it was just fantastic. Really exciting music, so I was really thrilled to hear this. And let's see. Let's start with the playing. Stefano Maiorana's program. This guy's a fantastic player. I really liked his interpretations. There was a lot of energy to it. De Murcia's music has a lot of, rhythmic drive to it, and it's really just joyful, happy music, and highly rhythmic too. So it's kind of fun and exciting to listen to. He's broken up his program with some works by Arcangelo Corelli, Baroque era, player. These are Baroque era composer. Sorry, these are sonatas that I guess were originally for multiple instruments, but that he's. Well,
I looked at his album
he's
notes,
playing here,
and these are written by Maiorana himself, and apparently.
Oh, he he didn't write them. He
no. So the idea that he's presenting is De Murcia lived from 1673 to 1739. And so Corelli is slightly older, 1653 to 1713. And what he writes is that this music represents the Italian influence in Spanish music of the time. So on this recording, there are several Corelli pieces, but the sonata in C major, which is Corelli's Opus 5, was actually, the transcription is by De Murcia. So,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't. I wouldn't have known that, and if I hadn't looked at the notes. But
I knew there were transcriptions. I just figured that Maiorana had done them. Okay,
but there was a great interest, and then De Murcia himself was interested in Corelli's music, and so he had actually transcribed these pieces for guitar, as
was everyone at the time.
Yeah,
and he was very influential.
A guitar teacher and performer who apparently died in poverty, unfortunately.
Murcia did, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Very sad. But anyway,
the playing is fabulous on here.
Yeah, no fault for the playing. And not only that, the sound of he's playing a Baroque guitar, which is sort of a slimmer version of a modern guitar. Now this has 10 strings, like 5 strings that are doubled, and he's able to get these fantastically fast runs off it, and it sounds like there's probably a great sound quality to this instrument that he's getting.
You can imagine it, but
you can imagine it, but what happens?
Well, what I wrote, my notes say it sounds like it was recorded under a blanket or something.
I actually said in a in a closet.
Closet. This is a horrible recording, sound-wise. There's you don't get
noticeably bad. It's not something that only an expert's going to hear, okay?
And it's funny, because I believe this is available as a high-res recording, which makes me chuckle because the next recording we're going to talk about sounds fabulous, and it's not. It's only standard res because it was recorded probably somewhere under not optimal conditions. But, with this fine set of music and the great playing and the interesting instruments, it's a shame that the overtones and especially the high register is really muffled, and I wonder what went on. Maybe
veiled would be a better word. It's kind of sounds like it's all there, but it's behind something. There's some kind of something between the microphone and the instrument that's kind of blocking the sound or something. I don't know what's going on, and it is a real shame because this is a fantastic performance. Hopefully we'll hear more from Maiorana in the future. And
nice program.
I have a few other Arcana label albums, and to be honest, none of them are quite this bad sounding, but the sound quality is never really great. And I've got another one on the way. There's a new one called Forqueray Unchained. The unfortunate title. Forqueray Unchained. Antoine Forqueray was a French Baroque era composer. I'm really interested in hearing that, but I'm a little nervous now about what the sound quality is going to be like. We'll find out. We won't review it if we don't like it, though, this time. Anyway, that's the first album of the double header. Worth hearing. We'll post it. You can hear it for free. Give it a listen. And I'm telling you, you're not going to like the sound. It's just
don't buy the high res.
It's
version.
not good. Yeah, don't buy the high res version of this. It's just not going to be worth doing. But it's worth hearing for the performance. So if you can hear it for free, definitely hear it. This guy sounds like a great player. Okay, now we have another solo guitar album, and this one's by it's called Del Canto Gitano or Gitano. I don't know how you'd say that in Spanish. Anyway, it's Gitano. Okay, Gitano. Okay, Del Canto Gitano, music of ancient Andalusia. And this is played by Ignacio Lusardi Monteverde, who was an Argentinian guitarist who now lives in London. Right? He's an Italian-Argentinian who lives in London.
This is a great recording.
If you think that's enough, being Italian, Argentinian, and living in London isn't confusing enough. He decided to do this music of ancient Andalusia, which has so many influences. They're almost hard to pull apart, but pull them apart he does. This program is really fascinating.
Yeah, he was inspired by traveling to the Middle East. He goes through Syria and then in India, and this record was actually made in India.
Yeah,
and so you're going to be in a flamenco raga trance by the end of this. I've listened to this. This is weird.
Flamenco raga and Middle Eastern modes.
Modes,
as well.
He's got Greek fiddle, violining, and he's got a Hindustani tenor.
He's got Indian drone instruments.
And there's a female vocalist on here, and he's got.
She's fantastic.
She's
Victoria
great.
Cooper, her name is. Okay.
And flamenco and Baroque guitar, and it doesn't. It sounds like an odd combination, but it's really a beautiful mixture of sounds, and it all really works well. This is very interesting. It's very adventurous. He took a chance with putting these elements together, but it adheres really well together, and I really like this recording.
Yeah, I did too. I liked all the ear is constantly interested because there are different combinations of sounds. The style changes. We hear flamenco right at the beginning in the ancient wells of Jairan, Rondania interlude, things like that. Then we head to the Middle East. Like you said, there's a Greek fiddle. We have Indian sounding music, and we also have a Pakistani singer.
Hindustani.
Sorry,
I guess
I shouldn't have said that. Okay, Hindustani singer, and then there's a Victoria Cooper. I wonder if she's English or not. I don't really know, but
it's hard to tell.
She has this fantastic kind of like sweet sort of kind of soprano voice, which isn't like she's not really projecting much. She just really just sings, and it's just a beautiful, sweet sound that kind of is very soothing. Not only that, this is a great sounding recording.
This recording is sounds fabulous, and yet it's just in regular resolution, and it was recorded somewhere in India.
Yeah, and the engineer was the guitarist himself.
Yeah,
he's apparently a music producer too. They should have gotten him to do the other disc too.
He should go back and help out.
He should go back and help out our friend Stefano Maiorana.
Yeah, this sounds great. It's very interesting, and the vocals. She sings. What is that one? Santa Maria Estrella do Dia.
Oh, beautiful!
That's
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the last one too, Claros y Frescos Rios, was really pretty as well. Yeah. Everything she sings, Victoria Cooper sings on this. I hope I'm saying her name right. It's Couper, so I'm guessing like the French Couper or something like that.
And the artwork for the album cover is really beautiful too.
Yeah, I like this too. It's got kind of a faded map of southern Spain, which would be Andalusia, the Straits of Gibraltar, and northern Africa. And in front of that, on a street, there's a woman in a flamenco dress doing a flamenco pose. She's looking really cool. It's a nice looking cover as well.
Apparently he was inspired by Paco de Lucia when he was 9 years old to learn flamenco, and so he studied this music, and then in his adult life he went on journeys through the Middle East all the way to India, and I think flamenco is a style that has sort of branched into, non-traditional things, mixing in jazz and other things. And he's taking this in very interesting directions here, going eastward, finding these other sort of influences. And the result is really enjoyable. So anyone who likes guitar or likes, sort of world music, so to speak,
I would classify this more as a world music album, than a classical one. It's got like a classical feeling to it, but it's mostly, world music, and that world music is along the Mediterranean. Just all those different types of people that live along that sea, and the rich culture that they all live in. I guess they're all different cultures, but they all kind of, mix together. It's just fascinating. And not only that, being someone who just loves modal music of all kinds, this entire album is modal music, and it's just like, it just really makes my ear tingle with pleasure.
I like this one. I'm going to buy it. I just can't decide where I want to buy it yet, because it's not available. The cheapest place to get it is from Presto, where we often buy, and they're charging a lot more in Japan. I'm just trying to find the best place and time.
This disc is available at a cheap price too. It's cheaper than ordinary, so I think it's more of a. It's not quite bargain like price, but it's getting close. Yeah, it's around €10 or something like that. Highly, highly recommended. Give it a listen. I think you'll. You really enjoy it. It's like a little journey, through the Mediterranean lands.
Yep.
So if you're locked up in your house, this would be a nice, big ray of sunshine as you sail your boat on the wine-dark sea. That would be. I guess part of that happened. The Odyssey happened on the Mediterranean. I don't know. Okay. So there you go. Highly recommended. And that's my guitar offering for the week. Okay.
All right. Hey, I've actually got a classical one from me this week, too, which doesn't happen too much. And it's classical, because I learned something. Yeah. And this is a recording, and it's, I guess this is how can I say it? The name has been made Germanic, but it's the Wranitzky Orchestral Works Volume 1. Naxos, and the performance is by the Czech Chamber Philharmonic Orchestra. Pardubice. Marek Štilec is the conductor.
Okay, now first of all, before we go into this, we need to be clear that this guy is Paul Wranitzky, because he had a brother named Antonin Wranitzky, who was also a composer. So
and
this is
real
Paul.
Name,
this is the older brother.
His real name would have actually been Pavel Wranitzky or Warnicki or something in Czech.
In Czech, right.
He is a Moravian Austrian classical composer who's a contemporary of Mozart. And he's very highly respected by Mozart, Haydn, and Beethoven. And so he lived between 1756 and 1808. And but I had never listened to his music. It sort of had passed me by. But apparently he was the most important symphonist in Vienna at the turn of the 18th century. And there's a bit of controversy, apparently. He's noted as being one of the 3 possible composers to have written the Austrian national anthem, which seems to be still mystery as to who the writer is.
They claim Haydn wrote it, didn't they?
I guess so. I guess there's some possibilities. And also, so he was highly regarded in his day, but I had never listened to any of his works. And if you're a fan of Mozart and Haydn symphonies, I think you'll really enjoy this disc. It's got 2 symphonies on it, as well as we've got a couple other pieces here. Let's see. So the symphony in C, which is the first one on here, is very sort of exuberant, festive composition. I guess this was written to mark the ascension to the throne of Franz II in 1792. And we've also got the symphony in B flat major, which has got a kind of expanded orchestra and has a lot of interesting tonal colors and is a bit broader in composition. And then we've got, 2 overture examples recorded here too, to give a little more example of his composition. But if you're a fan of classical era symphonies, I think you'd like this recording. I enjoyed it a lot. The orchestra plays this very well. The recording is clear and very energetic performance and really enjoyable. In that you usually know what you're going to get when you listen to something from this time period. You're not going to get too many deviations from the form. So you're looking in sort of different types of contrasts that might be enjoyable. But I found this, sort of fresh, and it's obviously, in the same mode as Haydn type or Mozart symphony, but it sounds a little bit different, and he has his own sort of approach to the contrasting elements. And I thought, well, why haven't I heard of this composer before? So I really
especially since he was so widely regarded at the end of the 18th century.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because, like we talked about Roth, who sort of was ignored, and then recently people have become interested in his music, and it seems like this is the opposite case. At the time, he was well regarded, but now nobody pays attention to this music so much anymore.
It's a shame. And the thing is, what happened in classical music was there was a repertoire, and people decided, who were the best composers of the time? Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, and they really just almost would ceremonially perform these, like, the great music of these composers, and music that kind of sounded like them and was equally worthy of being heard just kind of got brushed aside. Right. Now, I suspect that Mozart really liked Wranitzky. He also liked C.P.E. Bach a lot, and C.P.E. Bach's music was recently resurrected as well.
Yeah.
So we're hearing a lot of this other music from the period. It is really fun, and Wranitzky's music too sounds like there's a lot more to it. I want to say something about the performances here in a moment, but the music itself I really loved. There are these charming, carefree melodies, very Mozartian. Okay, and Mozart had that too. I suspect Mozart was probably the more harmonically clever, getting back to the tonic and these, like, with these little tonal sleights of hand. That was really his genius, and I think that's why we like him so much more today. I think people at the time found his music confusing. If you remember the movie Amadeus, the what do you call it, the emperor or whatever, whoever it was, who complained about Mozart's music. Oh, too many notes. You're right. And I think it was complicated for the time. Beethoven's music certainly was very complicated for its time. People, they liked it, but they didn't understand like works like the Fifth Symphony and the Eroica Third Symphony. When they were first performed, these took time to really be understood. They were very different. Okay. I said here about this recording, I thought that the performance was, it was solid. It was kind of light. All the melodic lines are really clean, and it's a very cautious performance. It's almost like the Czech Chamber Philharmonic wants to like just lay this down and get it all right. Okay. And I kind of felt like, it doesn't lack energy. I mean, these players are really on their toes, but it feels like they're playing like, not to a metronome, but they're not really like, kind of squeezing the tempos at cadences or like buildup of tension or anything like that. They're not really. They're playing what's on the page basically. And that's fine, because we don't have other recordings of this. But I feel like there might be more in this music than we are hearing on this album. They're not really, highlighting some of the special qualities. They're really just playing it.
Yeah, it's not performed enough to have expectations and liberties taken with it. Yeah.
That's what I think. They just wanted to kind of give a template or something like that. And now if somebody else records it, they can probably do something else. It's like the minuets especially. Like minuets are kind of... It's an old Baroque dance that got held over into the classical era, and audiences just expected to hear them, so composers put them in their works. And they're kind of boxy rhythms, they're very four square sort of like things. And in this case, they're played that way, and I suspect that there's more to them than we're hearing on this album. Now, please, minuet and trio form, it generally isn't very interesting, although Mozart managed to make, in his tricksy way, managed to make a lot of them very, very interesting. But I think the interpretation... I don't want to complain about the interpretation. There's no other recording of this. But I feel like more could have been drawn out from this. More these pieces can breathe more in the more steady rhythm sections. Okay. And I'd like to hear other recordings of this, but I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing this because I think it's a good performance, but I think there's a lot of room for other interpretations to draw more out of this music, and I hope we'll hear some. Actually, this is volume 1,
so maybe volume 2 has more. And this is a very reasonably priced recording, too, if you would like to purchase it on physical media or download. So
on the Bargain Naxos label.
Yes.
Okay.
But, as something new that added to my knowledge of the classical period, it was a very good experience. And if you haven't heard of Wranitzky, it's worth a listen.
The melodies are charming. They're really just, they'll just kind of, they'll bring a little smile because they're just so, like, they'll just kind of, what's the word? Man, I'm not finding the word here.
Uplifting. I don't know.
Yeah, they're uplifting, but they're also kind of like catch you by surprise, sort of like, oh, that's pretty clever. It's like a nice, you don't expect the melody to go this way, and it does. And it's just really, really charming. Yeah, recommended. Okay. All right, now you had brought up Hans Roth, as we remember a few weeks ago, died young. And his music was not... it was forgotten, really. Mahler absorbed some of it into his symphonies. We can hear some similarities. And we've got another composer like that, too, except this one is Russian. The music of Alexey Stanchinsky.
This sounds very Russian, too. You won't mistake that it's Russian music.
Oh, yeah. It's very Russian. Let me see. Now, Stanchinsky, boy, he really didn't live long at all. He didn't make it to 30. He died at around 28 of He's another one. We were talking about last week how Saint-Saëns changed a movement because his mother didn't like the original one.
Oh, no.
Well, poor Stanchinsky was undone by his mother and her refusal to let him marry the love of his life. Okay.
I was going to say a word, but we're not in the explicit category. So I'm going to hold back my statement.
Yeah, he apparently was made to not go through with his wedding plans. Years later, he met this woman again, and his mother was leaning on him not to see her. And one night, he decided to cross this freezing cold river to get to her where she was staying. And he had some kind of like a heart failure because of the coldness of the river, and he was found in the river the next day, dead, before he could realize his potential as a composer.
This is a real Russian tragedy.
Yeah, it really is. Sounds like something out of a Dostoevsky novel.
Yes. It's a horrible story.
Usually, though, deaths in Russia involve drunkenness, I think, but not in this case. Although, I got to say, that is a rather Italian death. He died for love.
It could be Italian, too,
yeah, died for love. Passion. Okay. Russians are very passionate people, though. I know that.
This music is... Well, you can go on. I'll give you my impressions after. But this was something else very new to me, but I found it quite interesting.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, to give a little introduction about Stanchinsky, he was highly regarded when he was alive. He studied with Taneyev, who was a big teacher at the time. He was classmates with Scriabin, and he actually sounds quite a bit like Scriabin.
Yeah, and you can also hear, like, I noticed influence of Grieg in the hands, and then there's sort of like some kind of like purity of like simple folk elements, like maybe like Mussorgsky or something in the earlier works. So that's what is interesting about this recording too, because it takes you through, even though he lived a short life, he really developed and went into something new towards the end. And in this recording, you'll start out with his sonata, one of his sonatas, which is, like you said, Scriabin, and I heard Grieg there too. But when you get to the end of it, he's sort of into something very new that is sort of, almost similar to like Stravinsky kind of things. And so you're sort of saying, whoa, he's gone to a new place. Even in this one recording, you can hear that.
Yeah, he doesn't quite reach Stravinsky levels of rhythm, but there is a lot of that. There was a lot of I think this comes out of the the five, like Rimsky-Korsakov and Mussorgsky and those guys. They wanted to make a Russian kind of music, and what that meant was you generally echo language, and Russian has a lot of its accents on the first syllable of words, and that's kind of part of the reason why Stravinsky's music sounds like it does. It's very percussive. Okay. By the way, I should mention also one reason Stanchinsky's music isn't known. Well, first of all, he died very young, but he destroyed a lot of his music, and a lot of his friends rewrote it, sort of recopied it from, I guess, what they had. And someone after he died, like later, tried to publish it. Let's see. The Soviet Union comes into this, actually. His music was edited for publication by his teacher, Nikolai Zilyaev. And Zilyaev was murdered by the Soviet regime, and his work was banned. And because he worked on Stanchinsky's music was banned too.
Oh.
Which, of course, it didn't deserve to be. But it was leaning in that kind of rhythmically propulsive kind of area towards the end of his life. So it might have been considered, kind of...
So, you can see when you listen to this. So it starts out with a piano sonata in E-flat minor, which is, just very lovely music. And the nocturne in E major is also really nice. And then the preludes. And there's nothing sort of... I would say like rule breaking or branching out here, although the playing is very emotional by Jablonski. He interprets this really well. And then I found like after the preludes, there are some interesting things. The songs without words is...
They were lovely. I liked these three.
Really lovely. The number 3 is just this really sort of heart-pulling minor melody. And after that, there's a piece just called Tears. And that's really...
two mazurkas, and then there's this piece called Tears.
And then it gets to the sketches, right? And then
I want to mention the variations, because this was my favorite recording on the album. He wrote this for a friend of his, and they're just kind of open and unguarded. And I really liked this work a lot. It kind of reminded me of the reason I got into this composer in the first place was because of there was a solo piano recording by the composer Thomas Adès made in the year 2000, and he played a piece by Stanchinsky, a canon, and it was just really stood out. It was so beautiful. We should hear, by the way, that's an album of if you're a fan of like unknown piano music, short piano music, that's a great record to hear. The Thomas Adès 20th Century Piano Works album, originally released on EMI, now it's on Warner Classics. We'll post that, actually. You should give that a listen and definitely hear the canon. It's not on this album, but it's a really beautiful piece. And the variations reminded me a little bit of that. Okay. The harmonics of it, the spacing between the the notes. I really thought this was really nice. Give that a listen. Anyway, 3 sketches.
Yeah, with the sketches, when we got into the sketches, I felt like now he's jumped really into the modern sort of element. He sort of abandons that sort of traces of real, a Romantic era Russian composition, and he's really in a new element here. But what I found that listening to them, they're very short pieces.
Yeah, in fact, he seems to have written only, I don't think he wrote any big pieces at all. They're all, they're miniature is what we'd say for the piano.
I found and these little sketches, they're sort of, what I wrote, just my impression is they're like musical riddles. He sort of
I was going to say that myself.
He introduces something that's, has some, various harmonic and rhythmic things, and then he sort of dismantles them and rearranges them in different ways to see what possibilities are there. And it sounds sort of mechanical, and sometimes you can see that, but they never get too out there without still sticking to some core tonality. And inside of them, some of them are really beautiful. The one I noted that after a lot of exploration comes back is the sketch number 12. It's Andante Epico, and that one is there's some real beauty in there, even though he's using different all kinds of techniques in here with like whole tone and modal and diatonic things. He can still mine a sort of melodic and recognizable harmonic thing that'll pull you in, even when he's experimenting with a lot of things. So although these are, for the time, very modern type things, they're very easy to listen to, and you can find something to catch on to in all of them. And so, I listened to, a few times, finding something new each time I went through them.
Right. Piano miniatures in general, they're generally, riddles is one possibility for them, and I think a few of these are riddles. Sometimes they're just passing thoughts, something you just want, maybe like a throwaway kind of idea that you just put down, and it's just because people play it now, it sort of gains in them sort of weight and importance. And I really love piano miniatures. You really don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes you get a profound statement in less than a minute. There may be one here. These are works. Now, the thing about an album like this, which is all miniatures, I think it's about a 70-minute album with 32 tracks. If you're hearing this many miniatures, they're all very different from each other, and I think this album has to be listened to.
Difficult.
Yeah, you need to listen to this in segments. I think you should just go for the sonata first, and then you can hear the nocturne and the 3 preludes, and then stop there, and then do the 5 preludes, and it's hard to listen to music like this straight through unless it's just playing in the background, but you're not going to remember any of it. It takes a while for it to stick. So I would approach this piecemeal to really get that. Anyway, Stanchinsky, this is a composer who I've been interested in ever since hearing that canon on the Thomas Adès record, and I'm just glad to have this. There was another album of his music on the Marco Polo label long ago that didn't really capture him well, but Jablonski, Peter Jablonski, a Swedish pianist, it seems to be a really sympathetic interpreter, and this is a good way to discover Stanchinsky's music. I recommend you hear it. It'll remind you a little bit of Scriabin, and to be honest, a bit of the figuration of Rachmaninoff's Preludes too, or his shorter piano works, the Etude Tableau, but those are far more involved than these. There's a lot of counterpoint in Stanchinsky and also in those works as well. Anyway, give that a listen, please.
Yeah,
even though for you.
I mean, he brings out the Russianness in those, especially in the sonata. He hits the right emotional.
He gets it.
Yeah, he gets it. Yeah, so it's a great performance.
Yeah, the Russianness has to be brought out in Russian music because it's there, but you don't necessarily have to hear it depending on who's playing.
Yeah.
I think it's important to hear those little. Leaning on those accents and, kind of really putting that across. And that's about it for classical this week, isn't it?
That's right. We're going to jump over to the jazz idiom.
Yeah. All right.
And
what do we got here?
Well, the first one, let's see. It's breathe. I think we alluded to this recording in a previous podcast. I think that was on Omnipotent Organs, and we're focusing on organ music, and we've got 2 organ recordings this week. But
we need to mention this is the Hammond B3 organ, which has this really funky sound that I love.
That's right. So we got 2 more. We can't stay away from.
This isn't the big Bach church organ. Okay,
we can't stay away from organs recently. But I was going to stay away from this for reasons which I will disclose. But
we can't stay away from
this one,
no, because we had to talk, because we already talked about it, and we were saying so we had to mention this. I want to say, by the way, we can't seem to stay away from Italians either. There have been a lot of Italians on this show. I guess they're just releasing a lot of music. I don't know, that's coming our way at least. So
I guess
there you go. I'm not going to choose an Italian next week. Okay. We'll have a non-Italian week.
I don't know if I have any Italian.
Maybe, if I can.
Hey, I was going Danish last week, and, we'll see.
Actually, I am choosing an Italian next week, except that he's Swiss, but he's got an Italian.
I'm going to make an all-Russian show because there's some really good Russian jazz players, too. So
I've got an all-French show coming up, so we'll do that when that comes up. Coming soon. All right. Anyway, so where are we starting here?
This is Breathe on the Verve label, and this
Dr. Lonnie Smith.
This is well publicized, and it's out there. The Dr. Lonnie Smith.
Yes.
That's the good part of it. The Dr. Lonnie Smith,
and a very soulful jazz album. Now, the thing is, let's mention first of all what this is. We have the middle of this tracks. There are 8 tracks on this album. Tracks 2 through 7 are all a live performance recorded in 2017. Yes. And featuring Lonnie Smith and Jonathan Kreisberg on guitar, Jonathan Blake on drums. It's a trio. And tracks 1 and 8 are pieces, they're covers recorded in the studio in 2018, quite a while ago, actually.
Yeah.
And they feature a collaboration between Lonnie Smith and Iggy Pop.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Formerly of the Stooges. I don't know how unfortunate that is, but we'll get into this. This should be interesting. Anyway.
Yeah. Can I purchase this album without those tracks? I don't know.
All right, but I got to say, the first track is killer. Now, if you don't like Iggy Pop's President on it, that's one thing, but the playing, the groove is just fantastic. This is the first track is Why Can't We Live Together, which was a 1973 hit by Timmy Thomas. Yeah, it's I actually went back and listened to the original because I was unfamiliar with it. Now, a lot of jazz artists have covered this. And the original one, Timmy Thomas, I believe it's him playing the organ on that recording as well. And he does a solo on it. And it's good. It's funky. It's got this funky thing. But when Lonnie Smith gets to the solo part, he really wails. It's just fantastic. I love the groove. I love his playing on this. And then there's Iggy Pop. I don't think you can say what he's doing is singing.
No, I think I felt like if I didn't know this was Iggy Pop, I would thought they went out and got the janitor or somebody on the street to come in and mumble for a track, just as a lark or something.
Well, he does sound kind of genuinely puzzled about why can't we live together when he sings those words, Yeah. Or when he kind of speaks those words in a musical way. I think really the selling point for him being on this is that it's going to get another audience. I don't feel like he really adds too much to it musically, but then again, it's not a traditionally beautiful voice, but there are a few of those in jazz too, like Louis Armstrong. People love him, and Iggy Pop carries that punk credibility. He'll bring a whole new audience to this, so I'm guessing that's why he's there. But I really wanted to hear. I found myself focusing on Lonnie Smith's playing. He was just fantastic throughout this entire track. I don't know. I liked the track, didn't you? You didn't like it at all?
I liked it. Actually, I like this. My idea of this album is it's a great live performance, and also the recording quality is stellar. This sounds really, really good. And I just don't like what Iggy Pop did here. I thought it would be better without him. Or there's another vocalist on here.
Well, I thought maybe he'd actually just sing out like in this kind of raw voice, but he didn't. He kind of was sort of.
Yeah, he's also on the final track, which is Donovan's Sunshine Superman. And he sort of mumbles at the beginning of that too, and that's kind of then it's over for him. And I don't know. I was distracted by Iggy Pop's contributions here. The rest of the recording.
Yeah, on Sunshine Superman, he sounds a bit sort of half-hearted. I thought. I kind of wanted to go back to the Donovan one. Donovan's words, and he sings them really well.
Now, so the performance I found is really excellent, and the recording is good. I just feel overall the material is a bit uneven. So, and the reason why I say that is that there's some kind of it's Lonnie Smith, so you've got kind of a soul jazz approach.
Yeah, and I really do love that.
That works really well on everything that he does, and he plays it greatly. But then there's some. Let's see. There's a song called Track 9. It's actually track 4 on the album, but it's called the name of the song.
The name of the song is Track 9.
And then here we're into something completely different. This is like a dissonant funk horn lines and harmonies. It's completely out of the soul jazz type of thing, and it's done really well. And there's an awesome burning fast trumpet solo by Sean Jones. This is great, but it doesn't match the character of the rest of the the sort of genre that's here. Then we've got a track called World Weeps, and this is sort of a ballad with this guitarist Jonathan Kreisberg. Man, this guy's really great, and so the guitar solo on this track is fabulous, and Smith's backing. Yeah, it's very.
There was some great playing all over this.
And then we've got a Smith's famous composition Pilgrimage, and the vocalist Alicia Olatuja, I guess is her name, and it's sort of this is like very gospel-y. Smith, and then we go into sort of there's a Monk and Kenny Clark tune Epistrophe, and so this is sort of something different. So I felt thematically it sort of jumps all over the place.
It's all over the place. It's not really.
It does work because the performance is just really, really spot on. The musicianship is great, and the sound quality is good, but. This sort of diversions added with, sandwich between Iggy Pop, and I was just sort of like, this is very strange as a package to me.
Yeah, I guess. I enjoyed it, though. I mean, I found myself, maybe I was just trying to make sense of it all, but I found myself listening to this again and again, and that's the reason I wanted to do this on the show. I was like, well, I keep listening to it. We may as well talk about it. It's kind of got me somehow. One of the things I love about Lonnie Smith, above, most organists, he's got a really funky foot. Okay, so the organist plays the bass with his foot. There's no bass player in this group, and his bass lines are they sound really funky. There's a kind of juiciness to them. So I really enjoyed listening to. I really love listening to the Hammond organ partly for that reason, because I just like the bass sound. Okay, it's a different kind of attack.
And whoever is engineering this recording. The organ sounds awesome on this, just the live organ. Yeah. He's got the full spectrum of the frequency range, and also the dynamics are captured really well. So it's almost, it's all about the organ in the recording, and it's done really well here.
And part of that is Smith's playing, because he really plays out. I think he plays loud, loudly.
Yeah, this is good. I mean, the organ playing is great.
He wants to hit your soul.
The guitarist is fabulous. The horn players are awesome. The female vocalist is really good. It's just a little bit sort of all over the map, and then the Iggy Pop for me. That's just.
It was really. I was listening to the Jazz United podcast, and they talked about the Hammond organ on a recent episode. And they mentioned this album, and Iggy Pop came up, and they kind of, you can see they didn't want to say anything bad about him, because they didn't want to get all this hate mail. We don't have the audience. We're not going to get all this hate mail from punk people. But they kind of said, yeah, Iggy Pop he was good. And then they just went on. They didn't want to talk about it anymore.
I'm all for interesting collaborations when
me too.
There's especially look, you can have people from different genres and worlds who come together, and sometimes it doesn't work. That's the chance you always take. But for example, when you have classical and jazz worlds coming together, or other type of like we had what was the one I was talking about? I haven't talked about it on the podcast, but Yo-Yo Ma playing Appalachian and bluegrass music, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, how can Yo-Yo Ma do something that's going to be too bad? And those are really interesting recordings. They come together, but I just can't really think what Iggy Pop is going to bring to anything for me. So I
like him on those old Stooges recordings when he was younger. He was kind of he really wailed. I don't know. I think the worst jazz collaboration I've ever heard was Kenny G with an Indian tabla player.
Yeah.
There really was.
I don't think I could say anything about Kenny G that hasn't been already said by other people. So. I think
that was just an awful matchup somehow. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I was at a clinic with the great baritone sax player Nick Brignola, who is from Troy, New York, not far from where I grew up. And then some kid said, "Hey, that's a soprano, Kenny G." And I remember Nick Brignola saying, "Yes, Kenny G owns one of these. I, however, play one." That's not how he left it, but so.
There's a really nasty video on YouTube too of Pat Metheny talking about Kenny G.
Yeah.
Check that out if you can find it. It's really,
I've seen that.
It's really mean.
I don't pick on Kenny G or anything. It was,
I don't either. He's got his career. He's got $1 million.
He played pop music, and that was it.
I think he set some kind of record for like playing with one breath or something like
with
that.
With one
too.
nostril. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I don't remember how that worked. I don't know.
Anyway, Breathe by Lonnie Smith. Certainly, his playing and the band's playing is great. It's worth checking out.
It will aid your breathing.
And sorry if there's any Iggy Pop fans. I don't think they'll be listening to this podcast, but you can go hear Iggy in his modern vocal glory, doodling over these funky organ jams.
Yeah, I got to say, though, I didn't not like Iggy Pop, but I didn't feel like he contributed all that much. So I just want to put that in there.
Please don't choose any more Iggy Pop for the podcast. And
I don't.
We'll call it square.
Well, we're not really calling him. I don't know if he qualifies as adult music, but he is on an adult music recording here.
He's senior now, that's
go.
for sure. He looks like the beef jerky that I had the other day, but yeah.
He's looking.
Let's just hope he doesn't put out an album of American Songbook or something.
He had a rough life, despite his success.
Yeah.
In the drug-addled 70s with David Bowie.
Oh, wow.
Oh, well. Speaking of jazz collaborations, the David Bowie one was fantastic. You know, the one, his last album. But that's already long gone. Anyway.
Yeah. We've got to go on to more organ.
More organ.
And we have more organ. We have an album by Mr. Brian Charette, who is one of the top organ stars of the day and placed well in the polls of up-and-coming organ players, along with Mike Ledon. I'm waiting to release something new. And he's
so that we can talk about it. We're definitely going to talk about that.
Yeah, right in that category. And he's got a new album on the SteepleChase label called Power from the Air, which is a good name for an organ album, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
So I picked this one because, more Hammond B3 is always good. But this album's got some really interesting things going on in the woodwind realm. So on this album, we've got, in addition to Charette, we've got Mike DeRubo on alto sax, Kenny Brooks, tenor saxophone, an Israeli flutist, Itai Chris, who plays some really awesome solos on here. And then, the other reason I picked it, where do you get bass clarinet on a jazz album? Not too often, but Karol Ruzicka on bass clarinet.
Yeah,
and
I love those bass reed instruments, the way they kind of buzz when they get really low in the range. Just love them.
Brian Fischler on drums. And so on this recording, it's mainly originals by Charette, but there are two covers, including the jazz standard Cherokee. And the other one is Harlem Nocturne, the old, sort of noir film kind of thing. I think it was Mickey Spillane's Mike Hammer or something. They used this, but Harlem Nocturne. They do a really interesting treatment because they play the melody with all of its sort of intrigue, but then it sort of has a little kind of free jazz interlude after that well-known harmony to sort of mix things up, which is kind of a fun treatment to it. But the rest of them are these really interesting original pieces. It starts out with a tune called Fried Birds, which I thought was pretty good.
He had a few good titles, Fried Birds, and then the next one was, what was the next one after that? I can't bring this up.
Fried Birds, and let's see what's after Fried Birds on here.
I didn't bring this up.
Track list here.
Here it is. Okay, here it comes. Okay, Elephant Memory.
Yeah, Elephant Memories. I like that one too.
I just remember that 1-2 kind of thing. Silver Lining was beautiful too. I really liked that a lot.
On Fried Birds, like right from the beginning, it's interesting because you've got the woodwinds are playing sort of this really kind of hard bop line, but behind it, Charette is like really in a soul jazz sort of comping style. So you've got this nice kind of double element going on, hard bop and soul jazz. And then a lot of the other tracks here, The Silver Lining and another one, As If to Say. If you listen to these, I listened to them for, the first time, and I was just like listening to the instrumentation and the solos. Then I started really focusing on the heads and what was going on here, and I thought, hold on, there's some really out there time signatures and meters going on here. And if you try to figure out the subdivisions and the counting in them, you're going to get lost really quickly. There's a lot of complicated stuff going on in. So Silver Lining, As If to Say, there's some really interesting timing things going on here. And so you've got, this combination of his really soulful organ playing, really good footwork with the bass, fabulous arrangements of the woodwind instruments, and adventurous compositions with great improvisation from these players, nice flute playing and that bass clarinet. Yeah, it's a really fun album that it's sort of pushing the sort of organ genre into experimental kind of areas, and I thought it was on first listen you might not be caught by all of it. It's not as catchy as the Lonnie Smith with the soul grooves, but there's a lot of interesting detail in this recording, and I think it's worth a listen for jazz fans.
Yeah, compared to the Lonnie Smith, I heard the Lonnie Smith. Well, I had heard the Lonnie Smith before I even knew of this one, but I listened to the Lonnie Smith album immediately after I listened to this, and this one sounds a lot more buttoned up and neat, as compared to Lonnie Smith. The Lonnie Smith's organ playing really kind of oozes and makes the floor sticky, after one of those college parties. Whereas this is very. It feels very precise to me. Even the organ sound, it's very kind of restrained, and again, good funky bass lines on it with the foot there. But is he French? Because this sounds very French to me. It sounds like they're kind of like really placing the tone, the notes that they're playing, as opposed to just playing out.
American New York based.
You think he is? Okay, I should look him up.
I think so.
All right, I don't know, but it was a very different approach than the Lonnie Smith. It was kind of interesting to hear them back to back.
Yeah.
This was very I don't know the word for this, but it was neat playing.
Yeah.
Okay, it was very didn't leave a mess behind. Your mom would walk into the room after this and be happy, because they replaced everything. They didn't break anything. They replaced everything, sort of thing. Yeah, I liked the whole sound of it though, and it does sound like it's something that would grow with repeated listens. Yeah, this guy's from Connecticut, actually. Yeah,
okay.
Brian Charette. Okay.
Yeah, I just thought what caught me, of course, I wanted to check it out because it's organ, but this sort of full-on woodwind ensemble. Rather than somebody doubling on flute or something else, you've got a flute player and a bass clarinet player with alto and tenor sax, and then you've got arrangements for all of those instruments. You don't get to hear that too often, so I thought, this is kind of cool. Nice concept. So yeah, do check out Brian Charette's Power from the Air, and he's got a lot of other organ releases going back. He's one of the organ specialists that deserves more listening, so check him out on SteepleChase Records.
Yeah, he's got rather a unique approach. I rather liked that.
Yeah.
Okay, and here we go.
And our final one for this episode, going to Latin jazz, and well, what can I say but this is Latin jazz?
Yeah.
That's the name of the recording.
Yeah, and it is Latin jazz.
This is Latin jazz.
It's not as Latin as other Latin jazz, I felt, although it was great. Let's get into this.
All right, yeah, so this is on High Note Records. This is Latin jazz, and this is by Charlie Sepulveda and the Turnaround. And so Charlie Sepulveda, if you haven't heard of him, he is New York born and played regularly around New York in the 70s and 80s with his cousin, maybe you've heard of him, jazz pianist Eddie Palmieri.
Yeah.
And also he's played with Mongo Santamaria, De Valentin, Tito Puente, and many others, although I believe now he resides in Puerto Rico, and I believe he's into the academic side, teaching at a university there. But here he is with his group, The Turnaround, and a live recording from New York City's Dizzy's Club.
Yeah, and, with a lot of soloists.
Yes. His basic group is Charlie Sepulveda on trumpet, Norberto Ortiz, tenor saxophone, Eduardo Zayas on piano, Gabriel Rodriguez on bass, Francisco Arcaya on drums, and Nicholas Kosaboom on congas. Excuse me, but the special guest here, Randy Brecker.
On the first track, right?
Yeah. And his wife, Natalia Mercado, as a vocal. We've got Nestor Torres on flute, the great Steve Torre on trombone, and Miguel Zenon on alto sax. And so we've got his core ensemble and all these guest players. And what happens is a really exciting recording. And so right away on the first track, it starts off, and you got a Randy Brecker trumpet solo. Now,
and it was just really mind-blowing. It was just fantastic. Yeah.
So what I really love about Randy Brecker is, for some reason these days, one of the boring things about jazz trumpet players is like all the young players are striving for this really dark sound. Yeah. They're like using these really unlacquered instruments with a sort of, even the mouthpiece integrated into the instrument, and they're getting this really dark sound, which I guess was, cool for a time, but Randy Brecker is sort of the antithesis to that. He's always had this laser bright sound that just like cuts through everything. Yeah. And so he comes out here with a lot of his interesting intervals and great technique and this sort of laser-like solo that's fabulous. And then what I thought was really cool about this is, if I was going to have Randy Brecker solo on my album, I would play first, and then I would have Randy Brecker play after me. I wouldn't play after Randy Brecker, right?
Yeah, you want to build up the tension, yeah?
Sepulveda lets him play first, and then he comes in with his own solo. And when I first heard this, the first thing that caught me, so the tune is called Liberty.
Yeah.
And jazz musicians often will do something called quotation. So they'll play a quote from another melody in another solo. And what he quotes here is the jazz standard, "If I Should Lose You."
Oh, didn't identify that.
Yeah, but if you think about the tune is Liberty and "If I Should Lose You," I thought that was kind of poignant in there. Anyway, but I thought that was great. And Sepulveda is a great trumpet player, and to let Randy Brecker play before you and then to also play after him in a great solo is that's something else too. So that's really cool. And then Steve Touré, who's awesome trombonist and also plays the conch shells, and he writes really interesting arrangements of things. He solos here on track 3, Tales from the Wall. And then later on another track called Firm Roots. And then we have the old tune, Cherry Pink and Apple Blossom White, which they have a lot of fun with a fun stop and start. They start the melody.
Some of the pauses are very long.
Really long, pregnant pauses.
I was checking my player to make sure that it was still playing at some points.
And this tune features some great flute work from Nestor Torres, who also plays guest again on the last tune called Pier Magic. And there's a alto sax player on here, and I was unfamiliar with him, but he's a real beast, Miguel Zenon, and he plays this burning solo on a tune called Frenesi. He can really...
he's fantastic. I like him too. I like his solo albums.
He can really phrase and rip up a solo there. And then we've got Sepulveda's wife, Natalia Mercado, and she sings a vocal on a tune called, what is it here?
Alfonsina y el Mar.
Yeah, which is a very passionately sung thing. And then he's not a guest, he's in the group, but I'd like to point out the piano player here, who is Eduardo Zayas. And he just does some fine piano work on the whole recording. He's got all the Latin styles down, and he adds the intensity and backing between all these other guest players in the main band. And so you get a really nice, energetic Latin jazz album. I think, Sepulveda, I think he sees his approach as more rooted in the Puerto Rican jazz styles. He he says he plays a traditional Latin jazz, which is mixed with hard bop, but in a Puerto Rican styles like bomba, plena, danza, and so I think he values the original Latin elements in these type of things, but he can do the bop things and other things too. So this recording's got a lot of good energy and these great guest players too. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and for a live recording, you get that extra energy in the mix there too.
Right. When I said it's very Latin, but not as Latin as others, what I meant by that was when I listen to like a Latin jazz record with a lot of percussion on it, it feels really dancey to me. Like there's that whole dance element to it. You don't really get that here. This is really about the musicianship, but that's fine with me. It's certainly not a criticism. You're listening to the solos here, and I was really drawn by the contrast, and the Randy Brecker solo that started to really grab my ear right away, so I was in. But then by the time you get to track 3, Cherry Pink and Apple Blossom White, you have Nestor Torres soloing, and he's the opposite. I guess you can think of a triangle. There's like the Randy Brecker bright sound, and then there's the dark sound of someone like Ambrose Akinmusiri. But Nestor Torres is also kind of an opposite to Randy Brecker, whereas he gets that sort of more opaque kind of Mexican mariachi type sound, where it's very, it's very expressive. There's like a wavering in the tone, sort of. It's very emotional, and it's I don't know how to describe it. It's not a bright sound. It's more of a, it's opaque, sort of. This is sort of like something over it, like you can't kind of, hear through it or something like that. So all the contrasts were really interesting. So I guess in a way, you could also say it's more Latin than everything else, because we go through the different varieties of Latin jazz on this record. So yeah, there you go. I like this. I like the contrast a lot. It's an album that you listen to, though. You could sit down.
They're having a lot,
but it is energetic. I mean, it does have a lot of
fun
energy
here too. Yeah, you can feel that. And he seems to be very appreciative of Randy Brecker too. But I would be really shaking in my shoes if I had to play after Randy Brecker. So
I gotta say that the Randy Brecker, it's the first solo you hear, and grabs you right away. And I thought that was the best solo on the album, to be honest. The other ones were very good. I mean, there's certainly nothing wrong with them, but yeah, they kind of, I thought he really wailed on that solo. It was fantastic. All right.
Yeah, it would have been a good night to be at Dizzy's Club. But
yeah. Well, I think most nights would be a good night to be at Dizzy's Club and elsewhere.
Yeah. Anywhere where live music. So hopefully the world will open up again, and we'll throw off these face diapers and just start.
What a horrible
life
image,
again.
man.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah.
I have a whole bag of them right next to me here.
I actually need more, because now we're going back. We're all going back to work now, and you need to be wearing these at work. So,
well, I just recommend I recommend killing the virus with alcoholic beverages of the adult nature, like we're enjoying tonight with the Knob Creek. This is
yes.
This is 120
in celebration.
120 proof, guaranteed to kill all virus and bacterial microbes in your system. Yeah. And then killing that bad brain funk with adult music. And
nothing is living inside my intestinal tract now after this Knob Creek single barrel. I think for our 10th episode celebration. Incidentally, I guess we could call Knob Creek the can we call Knob Creek the official bourbon of adult music?
What's what I've been drinking in every episode. So
okay. This is only
couldn't tell.
I've had this before, but I decided the 10th episode we had to drink an adult beverage to celebrate, so I went for the Knob Creek, since Russ was recommending it so highly. I'm more of a cognac brandy man myself, but I do like a nice bourbon.
It's my taste of America
and a nice whiskey as well.
Yeah, but I enjoy all types of beverages from every country. visited or have tasted, along with music. Yeah, it's one of those things. I like Russian music. I like Russian vodka. I imbibed it when I was there.
I don't like drinking
Czech
Russian
beer
vodka with Russians, though, because they drink way too much of it. And
I did that, though. And I had some really good stuff when I was in Russia. That was good.
Was anyone killed?
No one was killed. Everyone was friendly and very helpful.
Because that often happens.
I don't know. And everywhere I've been, I've had good music and good alcohol and good food. So I hope to experience those things again in the future. But right now, we can only experience the music and the alcohol, and so we'll focus on that.
It's not a bad life,
episodes.
really.
It's not too bad. It's a great time to listen to music and introduce
There's some great stuff coming up. We're keeping up with it for you. We're going to get you, keep you happy with all that, with all this new good music coming out.
There's more on the way. So if you've made it to the end of this episode, we thank you for listening.
Thank you.
To this episode 10 of Adult Music. And again, we ask you on whatever platform or app you're listening to, please follow or subscribe to us. It'll help us get noticed in the recommended categories. And if you have a moment, please give us a ranking or write a short review for us. That also helps to grow our audience. And we'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions or comments, suggestions, contact us by email. adultmusicpodcast, all one word, at gmail.com. And we'll be sure to reply to you. And we're going to see you again next week in episode 11 with some more interesting new music. Any final words, Mike?
I think I'm okay. I just want to say thank you very much, everybody. I enjoyed every minute of listening this week, and I know I'm going to enjoy every minute of next week because I know I've got 3 good... well, I don't know. One of them I haven't heard yet, but I got some good recordings coming up.
Oh, I'll let you know mine too soon, and we'll share them with our listeners next week. So until next week, this has been episode 10 of Adult Music, the podcast with music for the mature mind, and we'll see you all again next time.